Hello class, my name is Natasha Maya and I will be discussing measuring intelligence in children. For numerous years, many researchers have been firm on gaining a better understanding of measuring the IQ in children. This presentation will incorporate several aspects of measuring intelligence in children. We will discuss previous studies conducted to find ways of measuring intelligence in children, the Binet-Simon scale, and other factors such as motivation and ability that affect a child's IQ. Study number 1. Intelligence test. Are they a valid tool for measuring intelligence in children? In May 1979, standardized tests were given to inner-city children in order to test their IQs. However, the researchers failed to provide valid scores for the children tested. Once careful examination was completed, it was determined that there were 3 main reasons for those leading issues. The 3 main reasons were, first, failure to use any external criterion to evaluate the validity of their testing. Second, the possibility of examiner and investigator bias. And third, possibly mentioning a comparison group that may demonstrate that poor children would be helped more than others by the probe recommended. Unfortunately, this study misled the audience and caused doubts on existing intelligence tests. It also provoked a harm to inner-city children who were in need of receiving assistance that could come from these standardized intelligence tests, such as necessary diagnostic procedures. Study number 2. Measuring intelligence and verbal learning ability. For the past decade, many individuals have been focused on the early education of children in America. For example, the Head Start program is a course in which children have the opportunity to receive assistance in order to resolve any difficulties not allowing them to develop accordingly. The Peabody Picture Vocabulary Test, also known as the PPVT, was used in this study to measure intelligence and verbal learning ability. The PPVT was considered to be especially applicable in the National Head Start programs for preschoolers due to their young age and the frequent occurrence among the poverty groups of various handicaps to learning, including bilingual family environments, as said by Hickey in 1972. The PPVT has also been found to be reliable when it comes to both average and below average children, not excluding handicapped, retarded, and other children who may take longer to catch up. This study did not require verbal response and was performed on Mexican-American preschoolers. Children would wait for the word, and one of the children would point at one of the 4 images to match the word with the picture. The study was composed of 2,000 Head Start students from Los Angeles, California. Although additional research may be necessary to continue to assist children and their families, this study has found that there is an importance of structural differences and not functional. Measuring general intelligence. Since 1917, the Department of Psychology and Sociology in Indiana University has undertaken the task of performing a survey to determine the number of mental defectives that took place at the time. Psychological research was already in place to select gifted students in public schools for special classes. There were 10 tests, of which each contained 20 question items. The exams took approximately 45 minutes. However, certain grade levels, such as 3rd grade, took over an hour to complete. 1,022 children in Bloomington Public Schools took part in group tests. The results of the study were given in later papers. However, the purpose of the study was not only to be able to determine a child's IQ, but also to be able to determine any mental defectives of institutional grade. For many years, measuring the intelligence in children has been researched and will continue to be investigated. Children are our future and will continue to gain awareness on how to educate, evaluate, and assist the next generation. The studies have been previously discussed are just some of the many that have been performed to gain knowledge on how children's IQ have changed over time. The Binet-Simon scale. The Binet-Simon scale was developed by Alfred Binet and Theodore Simon in 1905 to determine the relative development of intelligence that may come from a series of questions and/or tasks in order to see how the child reacts and completes these at their age level. Here is a picture of Alfred Binet. The Binet scale, measuring intelligence and retardation. In France, the government offered and provided special classes for the mental defectives. Alfred Binet, who was a professor, was interested in diagnosing all who could benefit from this program offered. In the Binet scale, norms have been determined for each age from 3 to 13 inclusive, and the tests and apparatus have been so simplified that the testing psychologist may carry everything needed in a very small hand case and may test a pupil and make the necessary record in from 20 minutes to an hour and a half, said Huey in 1910. Although the special classes were very helpful when completed, there were candidates harder than others to evaluate and refer. The Binet scale was successful at helping mental defectives in the past, and still to this day many psychologists and researchers still talk about it. Advances accomplished using the Binet-Simon scale. Burnside, in 1934, described a report in which a mental rating was obtained by using the complete Stanford-Binet scale and the abbreviated Stanford-Binet scale. The data used to complete this report came from 375 examinations of public school children whose ages are between 11 years and 2 months and 20 years and 8 months. The data collected from the group observed shows normal spreading of intelligence. The purpose of this report to demonstrate the advantage of the significance for the individual and psychology. A new picture completion test. A new picture completion test, as described by Shaw in 1918, is proposed as one of the performance tests used to complement other tests being used. Binet and Simon studied the degree of a child's intelligence to such an extent that this will allow him or her to find various solutions for problems which may arise at any given time in their life. There is a criticism to this type of test, which is that the child's motor needs are not recognized as they should, and more emphasis is given to the linguistic side. Arts and drawings. Almost every child loves to draw. Not much observation or examinations have been done on children, and when they are given the task to copy a drawing or something set before him or her. In 1926, Wellman, defining the directions of the lines to be drawn, made a very careful analysis of the influence of direction of movement on the control of hand and arm in a group of young children, Rice said in 1930. A test was performed in order to examine whether there is a certain direction of movements involved with the intelligence and growth of a child as they mature. It was found that in a group of 293 children, which were already divided into groups A through F, would allow for a better understanding behind this matter. The children used a white card in which they reflected a drawing of a black diamond. There was an experimenter and a responder. One sat quietly while the other held the card with the picture. The study found what was expected. With increase in age, there is a tendency to be paralleled by a change from the uninterrupted line type. In addition, the direction of movement seems to be on the position in which the symbol is drawn. Additional experiments should be performed in the near future in order to gain more knowledge on types of movement in drawing. Last words on the Binet scale. In the last couple of years, some psychologists believed that weak-minded children may be more unevenly developed than normal children. Binet and Simon's thoughts would be unevenness of mental development, the exaggeration of some mental traits while others are striking undeveloped, is the prominent characteristic of feeble-minded children, Wallen said in 1927. Motivation and ability in children with intellectual behaviors. As mentioned before, psychologists have been interested in understanding children's intellectual achievement behaviors for many years. This past report describes a study conducted with determinants of children's achievement behaviors. The reason behind the study was to determine a number of predictor variables and children's intellectual achievement behaviors in different situations. At the conclusion, the study was found that there were several results since there were both genders involved in the study. Two variables, a small number of achievement standards and the assignments of self-responsibility were frequently projecting for the boys but unrelated for those of the girls. In this case, both genders have different intellectual achievements and are unrelated as it would be expected. Just a thought. Attachment in infancy and IQ in kindergarten. This study demonstrated that children which feel attached to something or someone may not perform as well as another child who is not attached. 65 children were involved in this study, and there were no difference in the working mothers. Mothers worked more than 15 hours outside the home. The mother's working status did not make a difference, and the child. The child who was more secure ended up performing better and with a higher IQ. These are my references, and this is the end of my presentation.